Hill. So also Nero, before and after the fire, used the Palatine Hill to this aim. But after the fire, he had decided to have a bigger house. So he took the Oppian Hill, which would be behind you if the arcades were opened, and the Oppian Hill and the Esquiline Hill, because on the top of them he had decided to create the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, a sort of huge summer residence. While the Cilian Hill behind me was left savage for the hounds of the emperor, decorated eventually with several fountains. The valley, surrounded by the hills I've told you, was used to create an artificial lake called Nero's Pond. So you see, the aim of Nero was not to have a country house, but part of the Roman country in the town of Rome. Hundreds of years before, the Romans had used amphitheaters. The only difference is that for the period of the games, they built wooden structures, wooden amphitheaters, demolished right after the ending of the games. So every time they had games, they had to recreate new amphitheaters. On the contrary, with the Colosseum, in every moment the emperor decided to have games, the amphitheater was ready for the use. And this is the way the Colosseum had to appear when it was inaugurated after 11 years of works by Titus, the son of Vespasian, who organized 150 days of celebrations, so around 5 months. I say that a big party was organized with exceptional architecture. You see, the idea was to have 3 equal floors with 80 arcades each, and a 4th floor in complete opposition, completely different in comparison with the previous 3, because it had a special function to absolve 2. It's clear that every arch on the ground was used as a gate to enter or to leave the Colosseum, while on the 1st and on the 2nd floor, every arch was decorated with a statue. It means that 160 statues decorated the exterior of the Colosseum, and the function of most of the arcades was to give light to the internal corridors. I know that today we are in an open-air corridor, don't worry. The fact is that open-air corridors never existed and never were projected in the original Colosseum. The 4th floor, I've told you, had a special function to absolve 2, because the main inconvenience is that the games were organized on summer. They started around 9 o'clock in the morning, usually until dusk. The duration of the games was changeable, it's true. It depended on how strong were the economies of the empire to support the expenses necessary for the games. Usually 1 week, 2 weeks, or a few months, several months, I've told you 150 days to inaugurate the Colosseum. The fact is that the seats were open air, so the spectator had to stay under the sun for the whole day or most of it for several days. So I imagine that being a Roman spectator had to be more risky than being a gladiator. So the solution for this inconvenience was the creation, and they are still present because the northern side of the Colosseum is still the original Roman one, groups of 3 marble corbels per every arch below. Every marble corbel had to support, as you can see, a wooden beam. In complex 240 wooden beams, at the edge of which was attached an awning, a canopy, a sort of coverture extended inside the architecture, leaving only the central oval shape under the sun. In this way, all the spectators were under the shadow, so protected by the warmness of the sun in Rome. And the workers, the only workers allowed to maneuver the awning, were the sailors coming from Capo Miseno, from the south of Italy. Only those sailors were in charge of maneuvering the awning. So every time the games were organized inside the Colosseum, they had to come to Rome to stay here until the ending of the games. For the houses, no problem. The emperor offered them the dwellings necessary for all the period of the games. Now, the exterior of the Colosseum is quite easy to be understood in comparison with the interior, because today, I say, we have what remains, what survives of the Colosseum. So if I tell you that between 60 and 70,000 spectators entered the Colosseum, you could think that the sun is very dangerous in Rome. It's not a problem. I'm not crazy, not for the moment, I mean. The fact is that we have lost most of the seats of the Romans, but we have a few. On my right, over there, you have a group of white marble blocks, giving you the impression to be part of a stair. On the contrary, they are part of the noble seats of the Colosseum, the marble seats used by the aristocracy. What you're looking at is a reconstruction of 1930s. But the reconstruction was realized with the original marble blocks found inside the Colosseum. So to have an idea of the noble seats of the Colosseum, you have only to extend the reconstruction to the oval shape surrounding the arena, along the oval shape surrounding the arena. For the other seats, you can see a big slope right above the marble ones. Above the slope, you can see a store with several open-air corridors. Now, with your imagination, you have to cover all the open-air corridors you can see with a slope, and try to unify all the slopes you can imagine in just one continuous slope, above which you have to house several rows with the seats. So to recreate something like this, a sort of continuous slope starting from the edge of the external ring straight down until the edge of the arena. This is the reason why I've told you before that open-air corridors as this one never existed. This passage had to be covered by the going down of the slope. So it's clear that part of the spectators sat right above us. And with this structure, it's easier to house here thousands and thousands of spectators who knew exactly where they had to stay because of a ticket given them without paying, because the games were free. The emperor, the empire had to support all the expenses. The tickets were necessary just to know where they had to stay exactly. When I say a ticket, it's clear. Imagine a piece of clay or a piece of a broken brick with several numbers carved on. First of all, the number of the arch on the ground used as a gate, because from 1 to 80 all the arcades were, and in part still are, numbered.